Welcome back to my farm. Now today we're working on the two fields I've got for doing crops in. And I'm doing these ones up for carrots. So putting the ridges in, we did plant carrots, which I'll be doing later on. So I might just turn the time down a tad while I think of it, because I've still got to plant the carrots yet. Now we're using this big Fiat 90 series tractor to do this, which I don't actually own the Fiat, but I don't own any tractors powerful enough to use the ridge marker there, so borrowed the Fiat off a neighbouring farmer, and in return, because you may recall if you've seen any of my earlier videos, I have two bulls because I don't use artificial insemination on this farm. I use bulls instead. So spoke to the neighbour about this, and in return for him lending me his tractor so I can put the ridges in my fields for planting my carrots, I'm lending him my bulls to fertilise his cows with. So it seems like a pretty good deal. And these are the two paddocks that are just around next to AK and Fury Machine Gaming's houses. So you can see their houses here, those two there. I put those in myself, so they belong to AK and Fury Machine Gaming, two other YouTubers I know. And so we're just going to put some ridge markings in this other field as well, and then we'll go back and plant carrots. But I thought today I kind of felt a wee bit inspired to have children's story time. It's not really children's story time, but I'm going to tell a child's story and take from it what you will. So some of you, if you're as old as I am, you might actually remember the story from when you were a child, but it's not a modern story, so a lot of modern kids probably haven't heard the story at all. So I'm going to summarise it. So the story is called The Emperor's New Clothes. And it's about this emperor who decides he wants some fancy new clothes to show off in. So he contacts the tailor in town that's best known for doing really fancy clothes, and gets this tailor to come down to the castle and do some really nice clothes for the emperor. So, oh, by the way, while we're looking at this field, you might notice that I'm leaving big gaps around the edges, and that's deliberate because I already know what harvester I'm going to be using for the carrots, and it's a one that's towed behind a tractor, but it's fairly big and bulky, so it needs lots of room to turn around and things, hence why I'm not going to the very edges of this field or anything like that. I want to leave plenty of room for working on it. So anyway, back to the story. So the tailor sets up in the basement of the castle, and so that the king can come down and check on progress of this mighty fine suit every day. And the first day the king heads down there, and there's the tailor with a spinning wheel and all the equipment needed to make fine clothes, but no material there. So the emperor says, "Hey, what's going on here?" And the tailor says, "Oh, for you I've got the finest cloth to make the finest outfit you've ever seen. This cloth is so expensive and so fine that only wise people can actually even see the material. Stupid people can't even see it." Now, of course, the emperor can't see anything because there's nothing there to be seen. He doesn't want to come across as being stupid, so he just makes out he can see it, and he says, "Oh yeah, this is looking pretty good, thank you very much, looking pretty good." So every day the emperor comes down to the basement to see what the tailor's up to, and there's the tailor spinning the spinning wheel and everything with no material on it, and making these fine clothes for the emperor. So a couple of weeks go by of this, and the tailor announces that the clothes are finished and ready for the emperor. So the emperor decides to have a parade through the town in his carriage, and there he is, rolling through the town in this big open carriage, and all the crowds, all the village people, townspeople, are all there cheering the emperor on, none of them wanting to say to the emperor, what the heck, I think. But it's one little boy in the crowd who, maybe, what children are like, they say what they think, they don't necessarily think about people's feelings or anything else. It's quite open and refreshing often that children do say exactly what they're thinking, because you get a very true picture. So this little boy calls out, "Hey, look, the Emperor's got no clothes on." And that releases the tension to the point where the whole crowd can laugh and start jeering at the Emperor. Yeah, the reason I want to tell you the story about the Emperor's new clothes is that I think sometimes the way this world's headed at the moment, I've missed a damn strip there, hang on. We're kind of going like that. Sometimes we get people that claim to have this new suit on, and some of us are just a bit too caring about other people's feelings to actually point out, hey, you've got no clothes on. So, yeah, I sort of think nowadays that perhaps it's time that, first of all, that some people stopped pretending that they've got this nice outfit on when they're not wearing anything, because quite frankly it's just embarrassing themselves, and one day they're going to grow up and realise what stupid idiots they were making of themselves by pretending to wear these nice outfits that didn't actually exist. And to other people, I think perhaps it's time to stop pretending we can see clothing that's not there, and to actually call out the truth of these matters and say, hey, look, the Emperor's got no clothes on. Now, you can take from this story what you want about what I might be referring to or anything, but I'm just going to catch this, but I messed up here. I'm just going to leave it at that. So, yeah, you can take what you want from that story and as to what I might be referring to or anything, but I'm just going to leave the rest unsaid and let people work it out for themselves. But yeah, my take on it is that perhaps it's time to stop pretending you're wearing clothes that you're not, or to stop pretending you can see clothing that's not really there, and actually just say to people, yeah, nah, you're actually naked. So that was the story I kind of wanted to tell today. For the story's out, well, not really an hour long or anything, but yeah, it's an interesting story that I think a lot of people haven't heard, and that a lot of modern people could definitely take a message from. So let's just leave it at that. Just get that bit that I missed. Now, in real life, coming back to the farming here now, you probably wouldn't go back where you missed bits like that, because, well, for one thing, driving the tractor over those ridges would totally ruin the ridges you've just made, but I'm quite pedantic. I hate having little bits in fields I've missed. So, like for example, if I'm running a harvester and go around at the corner of the field and I accidentally leave a couple of strands of grain behind, I always back up and grab them again, because I'm just a bit, I don't know, call me anal I suppose, I'm a bit anal like that. But yeah, I hate having paddocks that aren't all done properly and things. Actually, yeah, another thing I want to talk about was my milking shed. Now I'll just jump out of this tractor for a second, and let's just tab over here, just so I can show you the milking shed I'm talking about. It's just over here. Okay, so this milking shed here, which I kind of made myself because I got sick and tired of not being able to find a milking shed that was like this, that was open kind of thing, that I couldn't find any mods of a milking shed that's open like that with a big rundown to it. And one of my subscribers commented on that milking shed and said, hey, that's a really cool Kiwi milking shed you've got there. But it never kind of occurred to me, because bear in mind I'm not a farmer in real life, but perhaps that's exactly the reason I couldn't find any mods of milking sheds that were that design. Perhaps, in fact, they are kind of unique to New Zealand, and I've never even thought about that being the case and things. So if that's the case, which it might be based on that comment, then thank you very much for pointing it out to me. I love my little Irish farm here, and I love having my Kiwi milking shed on it. Yeah, because I know that there's a few other things on my little dairy farm here that I probably don't really do quite correctly for the country I'm farming in, because in New Zealand as far as I'm aware, no farmers ever put their stock in a barn over winter. You leave them out in the paddocks, but because there's not much grass out if it's snowing or anything like that, you would take hay out to the fields over winter months as well. So that's what I tend to do with this farm. I don't have any, the only barn I've got is a little calf barn. Actually, talking of which, I better check on my cows. I can't remember how close they are to calving at the moment. 70%, so yeah, we're right there. So I have got a calf barn, but I haven't got any barns for my fully grown cows, and I've got 4 paddocks full of these cows, so there's no way I can shelter them all. I just do not have a barn space for that many cows. And quite possibly in Ireland, in real life, the cows would all be put in a barn over winter, but I just leave them in the paddock, and as well as giving them the normal TMR that I give them, I normally go and chuck a few loose bales of hay in the paddock as well for them to chew on, or to rip apart and to lie in to keep them warm. And that's the extent of my winter care. And I've got to be honest, sometimes I tend to fast forward through some of the winter days in this game anyway, because once I've maintained all my vehicles and done all of my repairs to the vehicles, which I leave to winter time, and every winter I go through, and I can't demonstrate here a wee bit. So if you go to the repair screen, which is this one, in the winter time, anything that's below 90% in condition here, I will repair. So if it's at 90 or above, I just leave it there. Of course, we've only just come out of winter now, which is why everything's really high there, because I've just done all my repairs for the year. So yeah, generally speaking, I only repair things once a year, and that's in the winter time, and I only repair anything that's fallen below 90%. And if it's above 90%, I just leave it where it is. I'm fine with that. But yeah, once I've done all my repairs for the winter, then there's really very little to do on farm over the winter months, so I sometimes fast forward through them. Now, it used to be really, really easy to do that, because what would happen is you'd make sure that all the paddocks had, like, you'd fill up all of the troughs before you start fast forwarding through days, and because the troughs would hold enough food for 3 or 4 days, and I was probably only playing 1 day months anyway, I would fast through all of winter, then save and quit, go into the XML and refill all my troughs again, and then just carry on from the end of winter. But with this version of this map, first of all you have to do a minimum of 2 day months, because if you do 1 day months, which is what I prefer to do, I must admit, it makes the years go a bit faster. If you do 1 day months on this map, the cows just eat a tremendous amount of food every day. And so, I mean, I'm not going to knock the modders. I mean, this is a brilliant map, absolutely brilliant. My personal preference is that the amount the cows eat, the way they've done it in this map is they work out how much a cow eats in real life in a month, and then the map basically looks at how many days are in your month and divide that real amount of food a cow would eat into a month into that number of days. So if you have 2 day months, like I'm running at the moment, each day your cows will eat half a month's worth of food, which is still quite a lot of food. But if you have 1 day months, then every single day in the game, the cows are going to eat a whole month's worth of food, and you just can't keep up. It just, I find that trying to feed cows who are eating a whole month's worth of food in 1 day, it just takes up all day just to feed the cows, and you've got no time to do any other work like this or anything. So I run it at 2 day months, so they can actually keep ahead. But the troughs only seem to hold enough food to last for 1 day. So half a month's worth of food, basically. Now what it means, if I want to fast forward 2 months, I can't just, because once you let the cows run out of food, their conditioning starts going down, and all of a sudden they're well below 100%, and they're not giving you very much milk, and all sorts of other things like that. So you've got to keep that conditioning up. So what I have to do with this particular map, if I want to fast forward now, is I have to skip 1 day, then stop, save, go into the XML, fill up all the troughs again, then jump back into the game, skip one day, stop, when it saves, stop, jump out of the game, you go to the XML, fill the troughs, then go back to the game, skip a day, and to be perfectly honest, it is a little bit annoying doing that, and I get it, okay. The whole point of a dairy farm like this is keeping on top of feeding the animals, and since that takes up a major part of what I'm doing on the game, it's not the kind of thing that generally you should be skipping or cheating by playing in the XML to do. But if you just try and skip through a winter, I like to. So what would be a really, really handy little mod to have if it was available, I haven't found one, is have some sort of a button thing like maybe press F, E and D all simultaneously as well as feed, and it automatically fills up all of your troughs on the game, or at least all the troughs on the game, and fields you own. And that way, when you're actually playing through the different seasons, you fill up the TMR wagon and go and fill up each field separately, which is exactly what I do generally. But if you want to skip some days, then you can just go sleep through the night, then press FED to fill the troughs, then sleep through the night again, then go and press FED to fill the troughs. So you can kind of cheat the food in without having to escape out of the game and go into the XML to do it. Which it would be something that you could use as an option. You wouldn't want to be doing it for the seasons that you're actually playing through like this, because it would take away the whole point of having a dairy farm. But it would be handy for when you're wanting to skip days. And when talking of which, to be perfectly honest, all else being equal, what I'd really like to play on this game is a sheep farm. Because I'm a Kiwi, and there's a lot of sheep farms in New Zealand, I'd like to do sheep rather than cows, ultimately. But the reason I choose to do cows instead is I find the sheep in this game, they just don't require enough attention. They're too easy to look after. There's just not enough work involved. Now, if you had to actually use the sheep dog, your dog, to take the sheep down to the the shearing shed to shear them to get the wool, instead of just having the wool magically appear in the paddock and things like that, and maybe having to dip the sheep and go and dock the tails and other stuff like that, then there'd be a lot more to do with them and it'd make it a lot more interesting. But because this game was never really designed with animal husbandry as it was never designed, I would say, where it was envisioned that someone might just want to do animal husbandry. To begin with, the early versions of this game didn't even have animal husbandry as an option at all, and then in the later versions they kind of introduced it, but it was, in my opinion, like a half-hearted attempt at best to begin with when they introduced the animal husbandry. So as I'm just grabbing these bits that I missed here. Oh, I'm sure there's one there that I saw, and now I can't see it. Oh, so there, I think. Yeah. So it's kind of like done half-heartedly, where it's assumed that people will still actually be running a grain farm, growing crops as their primary thing, and the whole game seems to be designed with that as the primary focus, with the animals just almost tacked on as an afterthought. And so the reason I do cows is because they're the animals that probably, I think in my opinion, requires the most amount of work in this game, because to have the cows at their ultimate, you've got to be feeding them TMR, and to feed them TMR, of course, you've got to, we're just ignoring the fact I'm driving over the ridges I've already made here. To feed them TMR, you've got to be making the TMR and mixing wagons, and it means you've got to be cutting grass regularly to make both hay and silage out of. And I personally buy in my straw as I need it, so I don't use a lot of straw, so I just buy it as I need it. And to me that's quite realistic, because in real life I understand farmers can buy in bales of anything they need, feed or whatever, and the only things I use the straw for is I use it as bedding in the calf igloos and calf barn, and also, as I said, I take a couple of bales out and chuck them on the paddock over the winter months for the cows to either chew on or sort of pull the bales apart and make bedding to keep them warmer, because I'm leaving them out in the paddocks over winter, which probably isn't right for Ireland, but I don't care, it's how I want to do it. To me, it doesn't feel right to put your animals in a barn over winter, because that's not the way it's done in New Zealand, so it just doesn't feel right to do it to me, and so that's what I don't want to do that. So yeah, I do the cows simply because it's the animal that probably takes the most amount of work to look after them, but it's still not a full-time job looking after the cows, which is why I have these couple of paddocks that I tend to grow crops in as well. Things like that, so it keeps me busy when I finish doing the animals. But yeah, because the game wasn't designed where, I don't believe it was designed where Giants never thought that people would actually want to run an animal farm mainly with crops as a side quest at best, rather than running a crop farm with animals as a little side thing. You know, I've done the opposite, where I've got an animal farm with crops as a side thing, and it just wasn't designed that way. So the animals, to me, they don't tend to take enough work. What I would like to see personally is if you have sheep, where you've got to actually take the sheep down to, you've got to take them down and use the dip to dip them to keep flies and things off them. You have to take them and dock their tails. You have to take them down to a wool shed and actually shear them in the wool shed for wool to appear, and then the wool only appears in the wool shed instead of appearing in every single paddock you've got sheep in. In the same way for the cows. Personally, I prefer it if the game forced you to, using either a quad bike or a trike or a dog or whatever, actually take the cows from the field they're in down to the milking shed each day, and actually run every cow down through the milking shed and then run them back to the paddock. If you don't do that, you don't get milk from them, because the way the game's set up, the milk appears in each paddock kind of thing, instead of appearing just in the milk shed. And that's why one of the mods I've got loaded in this game is the auto sell milk mod, so I don't want to be driving around every single paddock picking up milk, because all the milk should be appearing in one place, which is the milking shed. It shouldn't be appearing in every separate individual paddock. And by running that auto sell milk mod, it also means I don't need to take the milk down to the dairy. And yes, it can be fun to drive a milk truck down to the down to the farm, pick up the milk, and then down to the dairy to sell the milk. But let's be honest, in real life, there's a dairy company that organises all of that. The farmer doesn't drive the milk down to the dairy himself. He's too busy on the farm. So during milking season, there should be a milk tanker owned by one of the big dairy companies. And I mean, in New Zealand, the biggest dairy company by far is Fonterra. So Fonterra would own, I don't know how many thousands of milk trucks, and arrange to go past every dairy farm to pick up the milk each day. And I dare say, something else that's a wee bit strange about this game, although it's not a complaint of mine, because I think it has to be this way, is that the amount of milk you get seems to be astronomical in this game. So you can quite easily fill a milk tanker from one farm. And okay, I'm not a dairy farmer, so I could have this wrong, but I'm sure that these big milk tankers that Fonterra has, and that you see around from time to time, don't just go to one farm each. I'm sure, a milk tanker must go to half a dozen farms probably to pick up the milk before heading back to the dairy. So in theory, you should fit the milk from half a dozen different dairy farms in that one tanker. I'm certain, rather than filling a tanker with milk just from one farm. Just doesn't quite seem realistic to me. But as I said, I'm not a dairy farmer in real life, or a farmer of any sort, so I could well be wrong there, but it doesn't seem to me like I am. It seems to me logical that a truck would get to half a dozen farms before returning to the dairy with all the milk they've picked up. Well, that's about all I really wanted to talk about today, and I see the video's been 25 minutes now, so I might sign off and I will finish this paddock off line, and I might even plant my carrots offline. We'll see how that goes. Thanks, and hope you all have a good day. But and after we're finished in this paddock, I'll pop down and see AK and Fury Machine Gaming down there at their houses. I highly recommend you tune into both their videos. They're really good. Thank you very much, and bye.